A couple of underrated comps are maybe coming out to be mainstream, especially after the patch hit yesterday. The spirits of Aphelios and Ashe are crying out, and Veigar is in a corner somewhere. I should also mention Janna as well, but she's always going to be strong because of those legs and legendary powers. Anyway, hey everyone, and welcome back to another ProGuides TFT video. Today we're going to be talking about patch 10.20's underrated and undervalued comps and how you can make use of them to climb. Try these comps out, and in the right setting they can definitely shine. As with every comps list, getting the comp will not guarantee you first place, but it'll give you high enough to finish top 4, netting you that sweet LP. These comps are flying a little bit under the radar, and while not completely uncontested, depending on your region as well, they are easier to set up and play than all of the 4 cost reliant contested comps. Don't forget though that positioning, items, and scouting are still your most important tools in this game, working together with your comp in order to give you guys that shiny first place. In this video, we will be talking about each comp, a general playstyle guide including chosen tips, looking at items that they use, and their positioning. All of these 3 comps are not exactly rare, but definitely not what people force, so their units often go unbought in the shop. They should also be a lot more viable after the recent B patch that hit the arena, which we will briefly go over as well. Before we go in, I just want to let you guys know that we have a Discord community and new subreddit that is growing really fast. We want to thank you for that and want to continue building our community and helping you to be a part of it. Make sure you check the link in the description down below. Now for our question of the day, which do you think is the most underrated comp so far in the set 4? Lock in your answers and maybe it will be in this video. So let's go ahead and start with our 10.20B patch rundown, which has reinstated our faith in Riot and has taken away a week of Spirit Shade, Veigar, and Ashe only game. Thank you. Spirit attack speed bonus were reduced from 35 to 80 to 35 to 70. Nerfing that golden trait while still retaining the trait is a good splash. Aphelios gets online much slower and is even harder countered by Shroud, with his starting mana getting reduced by 30. The Guardian interaction still hasn't changed, so he will remain pretty strong, but definitely slower to start murdering you, which is always a benefit. Ashe always gets a pretty decent nerf to her attack speed bonus with both 1 and 2 star forms, but we still don't really think that'll be enough to make her disappear, which is gonna be pretty good. She will continue to be a strong splash into many comps. Veigar is perhaps the most toxic of the lot after his target paradigm changed in patch 10.20. He is nerfed across the board by quite a lot, but we still think that he'll need a little bit more of damage nerf until he's okay. Janna gets a small mana nerf, needing more mana to cast, making those mage Jannas a little bit weaker. Not bad. That's gonna be it for the small patch. This should help the meta become more diverse and unsolved yet, but we're going to be capitalizing on that with this video. With that all being said, let's go ahead and dive into our most underrated comfort patch 10.20, and it is BarbaKahn. We know it was the same last week, but the poor monkey is still underrated. He has evolved a little bit now, even if he hasn't so made it to Homo sapien. Thanks, Darwin. The comp has the same conditions, and as always, play it when you get the Wukong chosen, either Vanguard or Divine. The Divine one struggled a little bit before the B patch, due to the Vanguard slot being a little bit of a nuisance early. You still stay at rank 5. Reroll for Wukong and then move on to better pastures, adding legendaries to the mix. You only need 6 Wukongs, so you should be able to hit them relatively quickly. It is really important to use the win streak that Wukong usually affords you in order to catch up in levels, or at least not be that far behind. Going to level 9 is optimal to get as many legendaries as possible, but level 8 is fine as well. Adding Set, Lee Sin, and Zilling to the comp can be explosive. An interesting trick to this comp is when you're having difficulty hitting your items early, use Fortune in any combination to rack up a loss streak. The comp is fairly guaranteed to spike, so you will get your win. Be able to cash in on that juicy streak and get a ton of gold is always something that is welcomed. This is generally possible with a lot of builds, but the guaranteed spike is not a given for most of them, so Bonk makes it easier. The option of staying 5 and hyper rolling Garen and then 6 for Thresh and Janet seems to be too slow in the current meta, and the units are not strong enough. The B patch might make it a little bit more bearable, but the scaling version will always be the best in the late game. Positioning. Positioning is really lobby dependent with this one. If you want a lot of assassins and shade, you want to position to the sides and upward. This will allow your Wukong to either target the assassins quickly or make mincemeat of their front line and move on to the assassins before he gets targeted. This is an example of a full late game build with the Vanguard chosen. Divine chosen opens up other options, and you can add Warwick to buff the set, and then you get 4 Divine with Lee Sin, etc. The comp can be quite flexible, but you just have to scale well. If you are facing more traditional backline comps like mages, Ashe, and a sharpshooter, you can position like this. Don't underestimate the inclusion of Azir in the comp, as his soldiers can be placed in corners, baiting Aatrox and Veigar ultimates, or delay assassins, protecting your Wukong until he turns around and then kills them. Now we're going to be talking about the items. RFC is still a must for Bonk. There's a lot of success without, but he really suffers against Ashe without it, or he just needs a Quicksilver, which gives him no offensive stats. The rest of the items on him can be any of the two following: Deathblade, Infinity Edge, Hand of Justice, and Bloodthirster. The healing item on him is very important, but the scaling of the AD and Deathblade is increasingly important on this "I gotta kill him before he kills me" meta. It is really important that Wukong's first targets die really quickly, then he could just two-shot everything with Divine activated. Everyone goes on and on about spirits and brawlers, but these poor guys are just slicing and dicing them all to pieces, especially as they try to scale. The problem with duelists is that their ceiling is tough to reach, requiring a spatula and fairly specific items. The comp is definitely stronger than people who flame it think. You usually play this comp after receiving an early Yasuo chosen. Yasuo needs extremely specific items to be actually effective, which we will be discussing in the itemization section. If you don't have any of these items, then you have two options. You go the normal route, staying at 5 and reroll for Yasuo while slowly building up your duelists and giving them a secondary trait to help out. Enlightened with Janna and Fiora is probably the best idea. Or you go to the other option, which is for going Yasuo 3, while buying as many as you can and leveling up to make sure that your Kalista is your carry. Xin Zhao can be very effective mid-game carry as well, but he definitely falls off. The second option is not desirable, but if you aim to win, not just top 4, without this specific setup and items, Yasuo will not take you very far. The comp caps at level 8, where with the duelist spatula, you can even get a duelist. You'll almost never have to go to 9, and you're free to roll at 8 for Yone and Lee Sin, finishing up your comp. Going to 9 can afford you an extra adept, usually in Irelia, and with the adept buff coming to patch 10.21, maybe that's the most optimal play. Still, with 9 being so difficult to hit, playing for level 8 is fine. Getting Jax to 3-star in the mid-game with just one Ionic Spark or Sunfire Cape is pretty ridiculous, and he could definitely carry you pretty hard. Be careful with the exile positioning on that one. Missing up in the late game, especially with Yasuo, can literally cost you the game. The 80% lifesteal is no joke. The comp looks like this, and you can switch things around if you like, depending on the lobby. If your Kalista is a carry, you might want to protect her a little bit more and or give her the rapid fire cannon. This will allow her to start attacking as soon as the combat starts and kill something even if something else is targeting her. The itemization. Bows, bows, bows. It's kind of weird. You'd think a comp of duelists would be using swords. Again, League's item logic is kind of spilling off into TFT. Let's go over the Yasuo items first. Hand of Justice, Quicksilver, and Guardian's Angel. If you do not have these 3 items equipped on Yasuo, you are most likely going to have a bad time. He definitely needs both the defensives, and HOJ is extremely strong in either of the procs on him. Bloodthirster is a viable alternative, but definitely worse. As for Kalista, she still needs all the bows. Rapid Fire Cannon, Hurricane, and Ginsu's are the best trio, but she's fine with doubles like double Hurricane. Try to itemize Jax a little bit, and spare late game AP items can go on Yone for even more damage. And that's going to be it for the duelists. Do try them out when you get the chance. Their early game is fairly inconsistent depending on your Yasuo items, but the comp has such a high ceiling, and that is definitely good. This next one is not exactly a comp. Dusk is definitely not what it was in 10.19 with Riven ruling the world, but she did fall off too fast and people have kind of forgotten about her. Well, Dusk with Riven has actually been seeing many success in different comps, including 6 cultists, sharpshooters, and the comp where we were talking about the most here, the Ashe and friends who are not brawlers comp. Dusk is a really odd trait. It's rarely noticeable in the early game, mainly because the 2 units that have it are underwhelming in Vayne's case and a support unit in Thresh. It's stretching to use both of them, so it's not particularly strong. So you essentially play your strongest board at the very beginning. You'll be leveling to 5 and 6 as quickly as you can, and then looking for Ashe, Riven, and Cassiopeia mainly. Playing 4 Dusk for a bit is quite decent, but you want to get a little bit stronger units later. Playing 4 Keeper is also an option, especially if you get a Chosen Keeper early on. Chosens that can carry items for Riven or Ashe are particularly good, like taking frontliners for Riven items and Jinx or Vayne for Ashe. Since this comp spikes really hard if it hits at 4 costs, you can ride that wave to level 9, but the beauty of it is it's not necessary. As soon as you get to 8, you almost always do a roll down, searching for any legendaries with a preference towards Azir, Zilean, and Kayn. Azir Keeper with Riven and counterplay for Veigar and Aatrox, and Kayn is just low-key insane at dealing damage, disrupting, and tanking. Riven and Ashe are your main units, and hitting a Dusk Chosen is often a win condition, namely Cassio or Riven. If you cruise to level 9, you can actually remake the Riven and itemize Kayn with her item. Depending on your Chosen, you should always be a 4 cost at this point, and you can mix and match traits like Dazzler, Divine, or Elderwood. Spatula items have pretty high value in this comp as well, as Dusk, Elderwood, and Divine and Vanguard can all be quite useful. Playing Fortune with this comp due to its weak mid-game is extremely profitable as well. An interesting thing that you can do at level 9 if you got there with 0 gold and having an Azir pair is actually throwing a second Azir in there. It's actually pretty fun positioning for all those units. Dusk could be a decent comp again going into 10.21, or even be strong enough with this B patch. Let's go ahead and see where it takes us. This comp was created by our very own challenger coach, Litiq, and has been seeing a lot of success and getting many firsts with it. The usual Ashe positioning works here, but with some more separate frontline and help from some Azir soldiers. You can mirror this on the other side soldiers, and of course, you want to put your Kayn to be jumping on something juicy. The Cassiopeia can be far off in the back, but you're really after her ult, and she'll provide a fairly good one in the front line. If she stays back, she may never get to ult, and it might be wasted. Itemization is really wild for this comp. You want Ashe to have GA and some sort of attack speed item. Even RFC is fine, as long as she's not your main damage source. Optimizing is not necessarily needed. Obviously, Giant Slayer is also an excellent pick. The absolute best combination is a familiar one, Infinity Edge and Last Whisper. Ashe scales so well with those items that it's actually so amazing. With Veigar still being a thing and being able to one-shot her, GA is far superior than Quicksilver, and that's why we prefer it. As for Riven, classic rules apply. Sunfire is good, Ionic Spark is good, and Quicksilver is good. It's smart to save a couple items for Kayn, like Gunblade, Hand of Justice, or Frozen Heart, but you'll still have to give him items for the late carousels. Guardian Angel is pretty strong on him as well. There are many viable options for the comp, so try that stuff that makes sense and you'll be fine. Alright, hope this helped. Remember that these comps are not non-existent and are all quite painful when contested. Check the lobby regularly, but do go for them if you get the proper chosen early. Or in the last comp's case, it's one of the most forcible and strong stuff in this patch. And that's gonna be it for this video. We will be uploading every week on Wednesday and Sunday. Thank you guys so much for watching, and make sure you check out our TFT content on YouTube and our high elo coaches on ProGuides.com. If you have feedback for us, comment below and we'll be happy to read what you have to say. Now get out there and farm some LP using these comps that you saw here today. Stay safe, stay healthy, and have a wonderful day. Peace.